Excuse me. Well, hello. My name is Ed Weaver, and I was a student at Sheridan from 76 through 79. And I suppose I could pour myself a small glass of apple juice and pretend it isn't apple juice and raise it in toast to a number of people who I recall from those years long ago, and that would suffice. But somehow I'm feeling, having thought about Sheridan a fair bit of late since the announcement of this reunion, which unfortunately I can't attend, that perhaps this might be the last chance I would ever get to actually say something of reasonable merit or value, which would require something more than just, hey, cheers, have a good time. I'm not there. I'm sure you will. So I'm going to indulge myself and hopefully press upon your patience and tolerance and understandings to actually share a few stories and a few anecdotes which will take me a little bit to get through. So time's a wasting, so I'll get on with it. My memories of attending Sheridan, as it was known then, college, very exciting, very productive, very creative, very positive. And coming down from small town Ontario, in this case Fenelon Falls, with a couple of friends of mine from the same high school who also chose Sheridan, Steve Famer and Barry Smitheram, and then a third fellow, Brian Morey, who joined in second year. They went into the music theater department. But for me, it was always going to be about films because I had made films with those same individuals all through high school, and so filmmaking was where it was for me. And Sheridan looked to be within my budget. We all, for the first year, lived in the same place for all of $40 a month in attic. In the attic of a house in Oakville. Fun times, but it was all about work for me. I was very focused and very determined to make the most of the experience. And of course, when I walked through the doors for the first time, I was scared witless about whether I was going to fit in or whether I was going to be able to cut the grade, and those fears were quickly alleviated, probably, mostly because it was a zoo. there was a bombardment of information, like trying to take a drink from a fire hydrant, one of those scenarios. So many students. I think there was something in the order of 60 when we started day one. By the end of the third year, I think maybe there was a dozen of us left standing, of which I was one. And the only way I managed that was really about focusing on making Super 8 sound films. Only made one 16mm film in my final semester, sort of thing. That was again what my budget would allow, and I did manage to cobble together 13 films over those 3 years. So it was highly productive for me, and I don't have the attention span to make 1, 2, 3 films. So quantity over quality perhaps was served my purposes. Um, Many of the students that I remember from those years would have to include Lloyd Nicholson, who also, like me, focused more on Super 8 sound. and But there were others, Phil Hoffman and Donna Brooks and Brian Harling, Stan Francis. From the animation department, there was a fellow Ian Friedman. Again, from music theater, Wendy Pawson. These are the names and the faces of people who gave me opportunities to work on their projects, and more often than not worked on mine. Of the instructors, I would say there was four prominent individuals that I remember well, and they would be Jim Cox and Jeff Paul and Harv Hansberger and Rick Hancox. So I'm going to try to remember a few things about each of those instructors. First and foremost, Jim Cox, who for some reason I sort of, you know, found myself putting up on a pedestal. He was the guy. It was like his lectures were bewildering, really. Not only did everything this guy say strike me as being intelligent and important, and you know, at the same time, vastly entertaining. I think probably it was the entertainment factor of his lectures that accounted uh, the most. For example, anyone who was there at the time most definitely, vividly recall his imitation of Dick Van Dyke while drunk. Um, Dick Van Dyke would have been impressed himself, and I think um, he's something like 92 now. So you know, I'm not suggesting anyone say something along the lines of, Jim, give us a bit of that Dick Van Dyke. I mean, it's tempting, but Jim himself is probably getting on a little bit, enough so that I would not want to be held personally accountable for any injuries incurred or anything. You have to take our word for it that it was beyond memorable. It was sublime, and I have chuckled many times over the years recalling this. And of course, Jim wasn't just physically adept with humor. He also was verbally very adept at a very, very high level. And evidence of this would be as follows. There was one person in our course. His name, a fellow student, was Gino Nicodema. I think I've got it right. Gino Nicodema. I'm somewhat confused or uncertain because Jim once referred to him in class as G-Note Nickel Dymo. Um, I don't know about you, but for me that you know, that is punnery. What is that? I'm not sure what that is, but definitely an improvement on this guy's name, and it's been stuck with me for 35 plus years, and I've been laughing about it periodically from time to time. Um, Two more Jim Cox stories. The first project I did for him was a film, you know, just a roll of Super 8. Go out and shoot a story, bring it back. We'll talk about it, and you know, that's what I did. I went. I was back in my hometown for some reason, and you know, there was a girl in my hometown that I always fancied. So as more often than not, you know, you sort of you find a way of encouraging someone to assist you in the making of films. You know, everybody wants to help make a film. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, she was totally unawares that it was really just me, kind of. Anyways, we were out there in the woods and we were shooting this thing, and all these nice pastoral shots, and then slowly I started to introduce subtle movement within the frame of somebody walking through the forest, and as they're walking through the forest over the course of, you know, this nice little, you know, 2.5 minute film kind of thing, uh, she starts stepping on saplings and breaking branches and actually destroying the forest in a very subtle way, and that was my story. It was, you know, it was an environmental piece, as it turned out. You know, I barely knew what it was about. But anyways, I submitted it, I got it back, and there, written on the little yellow box, was an A+. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, well, this has got to be some kind of a mistake. So I went up to Jim and I said, A+? And he said, yeah, A+. You and Phil Hoffman were the only two in the course to get an A+. I'm staring at him, and then he added, don't worry, Ed, it's not going to be so easy to get an A+ from this point forward. And I'm like, oh, of course, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I fully, and somehow that made it all right. That was fine with me. It was like, oh, of course, this is just, you know, it's easy now. It's not going to be so easy later. Well, I have to say, Jim, that in the 35 years since that time, in some way, shape, or form, pretty much everything I've done has been about trying to earn another A+ from you. Sad, I know, sad. I apologize, but your opinion meant that much to me then, and I've held on to it, and it's been very, very helpful holding on to, you know, to you standing up on this pedestal you can't get down from. And you know, how many times I have, quite honestly, on numerous occasions, asked myself this question: what would Jim Cox do? And you know when it happens? It's usually when actors are like out of control, when the inmates are running the asylum kind of scenario. It's like, oh God, how do I get this back under control? You know, without killing somebody. I never did kill anyone, and that's thanks to you. So, you know, I would be speaking to you behind bars at this point, if not for you. So, thank you, Jim Cox. The next instructor that made an impression on me, even if it was only on one occasion, specifically, and I'll tell you about that. Jeff Paul, he taught us photography and lighting, and he was also he was connected to music in some way, shape, or form. I think he was producing performance slideshows or videos for a band called Oregon. That's something of that nature. So I trusted his judgment on a number of levels, including music and pictures and sound together. So I showed him one of the films that I'd worked on, or was working on, and this was a half-hour thing called Robin Hood: The True Story, which is a Python-esque kind of remake that I had shot um, between my second and third year during the summer in my hometown with all my friends, and everybody was in it because we knew it was going to be the last summer where we were all in the same place at the same time. So it was memorable that way, and it turned out okay. And I got to write some of the music for myself because that was something else that I was keenly interested in, writing music. I did it for other people's films, and on this film, my own, it was, of course, the standard fare of lots of recorders and drums and really tinny synth strings. And anyways, I cobbled it all together, and Jeff Paul watched it and listened to this music, and he said, "Hasn't this all been done before?" And I said, well, yeah, but not by me. And he looked at me and he said, "Good answer." So, thank you for that, Jeff Paul, because that sort of that sort of gave me permission to allow myself the the authority and the responsibility to use my own history, use myself as the measuring stick by whether or not, on any given day, on any given project, I've contributed in a meaningful way, or I haven't contributed in a so much a meaningful way. And that self-reliance, that objectivity, that thick-skinnedness that you need, yeah, that was one of those moments where somebody says something in a chord. You hear a chord. You don't hear a note. You don't hear silence. You hear that rings true, and the light bulb goes on. Thanks for that, Jeff Paul. Harv Hansberger. I didn't technically graduate from Sheridan. I ended up being one elective short. And the reason for that, in a nutshell, I had my own fault. I mean, I procrastinated and, got near to the end of the third year, and it's like, I need one more elective. What am I going to take? And of course, the electives were somewhat sketchy over the course of 3 years. Some were interesting. We went and saw plays and reviewed them, and we went and creative writing, I think, was another one. But by and large, they were dreadful. And so in the final semester, I needed one more elective, and I took something, the role of women in Canada. Sounded interesting. Much to my surprise, it was a classroom filled with female students led by a female instructor, and the agenda of this course was to examine the myriad ways in which role reversals between the genders could be reversed. And I was the only guy there. So what looked promising turned out to be, I would imagine, what it's like to be stuck in one of those sun tanning booths for a couple hours beyond what you're supposed to be in them for, because I became the soccer ball that all these women were kicking around in class, and it was like there was a lot of man-haters, frankly. I mean, they do exist. I mean, I don't like to think that they exist, but there's some out there, and their gaze was enough to cause me sunburn. So I lasted about 5 or 6 classes, and finally I packed it in, and I went to Harv and I said, I'm not going to get this elective, which means I'm not going to be eligible to get my diploma. Is that going to hurt me when I go out looking for a job? And he said, well, it shouldn't keep you from getting a job, but it might affect your starting salary. And, well, that sounded good. That sounded like, okay, well, I'm not, what does it, diploma piece of paper. Is that important? I don't know. I don't think it is. You know, so off I went, meandering about at the beginnings of, for want of a better word, a career, and not really giving it a second thought. And maybe that was Harv's point. I don't know, because when I look back now on, plus 35 years of us all having exited the institution, what I realize is really for only about 10 years, and really only on about 3 occasions, have I actually had a job. Like a real job, like the benefits and the holiday pay and the picket fence life kind of mentality that you have. Yes, there was an interruption there. That was my lovely significant other telling me that, hey, in the obituaries today, there's that guy from Safeway. Remember him? Important stuff. So, yes, where was I? Harv Hansberger? Yes, so Harv, I can't really say whether your advice was well-founded or not, because as I explained, it's just like I never did end up getting a job to put it to the test. So there you go. But at the very least, you got me moving out the door. Not worried about it. Rick Hancock's. I didn't get to know Rick particularly well, and I don't think he got to know me particularly well because of the fact that I only did the one 16mm film. But I knew who Rick Hancock's was. How could you not? Because he sort of, everybody's, whoa, Rick Hancock's. He's intense. He's intense for a reason, because he's an independent filmmaker. He's an auteur. I'm not saying this facetiously. I mean, he had that stature, and it was like Rick Hancock's. So although I did just the one film under his tutelage, I did work on other people's films, and one of these, by a fellow, if I remember correctly, his name is Drew Morey, and the film was called This Is the Title of My Film. And it turned out quite nicely. It was a brilliant little concept he had going. And by some fluke, I ended up working on the crew. I was the sound recordist, and not my forte, but I don't know, Drew wanted me there, and of course, I'm there. So, 2 days shooting, I believe. And if I'm not mistaken, it was in Rick Hancock's house. And at the end of the second day, everything's in the can. We're dog tired. And Drew's fiddling with the camera. I just happened to be standing beside him. And I don't know if he was having issues with the gate or if he was trying to remove the magazine. I don't recall exactly. All I know is that at some point he reached up and unlocked the magazine. And I grabbed it with both hands. And I looked at him and I said, what are you doing? And he went, oh, 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 oh. He just about had a heart attack. And so did I. So I, locked the bloody thing up, and so I may not have been, God's gift to sound recording on that particular shoot, but I did prove my value for the one brief second where Drew Morey's brain blew a gasket. So after the fact, Rick Hancock said to me, "Oh, Ed, I was really impressed with the job you did. Very professional working on that shoot." I thought, "Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. It must be cool because I haven't been able to get it out of my head. It's one of my memories from the Sheridan days, so for that, Mr. Hancock, I thank you." And those that would be about it as far as anecdotes that I have off the top of my head to relay to you. Um, in brief, you know, where did I end up? I'm sure, if you were to do a search of me on the International Movie Database, you won't find me because I'm not there. And if you were to check, you know, union rosters, you won't find me a member of any union as well. And yet, I haven't stopped working beneath the radar, behind the scenes. Um, one thing has led to another, to another, to another. I mean, somebody at Sheridan said, there's when you're evaluating whether or not you're going to get involved in a project, there's three good reasons. One is money. You can't refuse being paid well. Two, the opportunity to work with other people attached to the project. Oh, I get to work with so and so. I'm there. And the third really good reason is, the subject matter is something that's really important to you. That's, your heart is invested in it. So, how many projects over 35 years have I worked on where all three of those have been in place? Unfortunately, probably count them on one hand where all three were working. But often two, and definitely at least one on every occasion. And for me, a lot of it. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff for free. And, that's kind of, I'm not complaining because I'm happier than, well, excuse my English, happier than a pig in shit because it's been great, and Sheridan was the Kickstarter for making that happen for me. So I thank all of my instructors and all my fellow students for working on my projects and giving me the opportunity to work on theirs. The patience, the tolerance, the understanding. I mean, Sheridan truly was, for me, a religious experience. And in a way, you can look at, what's been a career, as really about exercising demons for me. What demons? Let me briefly give you an illustration of this. For example, the big demon that I had on my shoulder when I came to Sheridan was, I think I want to be a director demon. And it's taken me the bulk of those 35 years to beat that demon into submission. And I've managed it only by having done it enough times and having gone over budget enough times and having on occasion probably underestimated my audience a few times and having worked with actors for all those years. I mean, really, that alone will cure you of your, I think I want to be a director demon. And that invariably leads to thinking, well, maybe I should be the producer demon. I think maybe I should be the producer demon is beaten to submission by obviously hiring yourself as the director and probably on too many occasions spending a little bit too much of your own money. That will cure you of the, I think I should be the producer demon. There's another demon that I'm sure we've all suffered from. This demon is known as the, what do you mean I can't write demon? This demon you can never really beat into submission because it's always going to be there. You're, at the very least, at some point you're going to stumble upon, your foot's going to nudge up against a little crumpled up piece of paper on the floor, and you're going to pick it up and you're going to read where you've written, nobody has scripted the great Canadian film yet. So you see, there's really no escape from that demon, nor should there be, until we at least get that great Canadian film up there on the screen. Other demons, the bread and butter demons, there's so many of them you can't count them demons. These would be the, I think I want to be a camera guy demon. I think I want to be an audio guy demon. And I think I want to be an editor demon. These demons, how do you beat them into submission? Really, you just let time take its course. Because time takes care of these things, you know. The bones, they start to get a little brittle. The gear starts to get really heavy, and you know, the hearing starts to go. It's like, you know, the eyesight starts to go. It's like, you know, can you tell the difference between that frame and that frame? You need assistants, you know. You need assistant editors and all these schleppy camera guys hanging around and grips and gaffers, and it's like, just let time take its course, and these demons will eventually be brought back into control. That's it for the demons, except for, you know, some of us, myself among you. There's always, at the end of the day, that other demon, and that is, of course, well, geez, maybe I should go and teach demon. I suffered under this demon for 3.5 years, and it was, you know, Sheridan was intense. Teaching for 3 years, post-production out of college, that was intense too, and it was like coming full circle. And I cannot believe how many times I opened up my mouth and the words that came out while giving lectures and running the curriculum, I was hearing words that weren't my words. They were the words that had been spoken to me in lectures, and you know, many, many, many years prior. And the particular school that I was at was very international in flavor. There were literally students from every country you could possibly name. And they're now back out there, spreading the word, exercising their own personal demons and teaching other people how to exercise their demons as well. So you see the influence of what you began all those years ago. It's like, I'm just passing it on. Like, don't blame me. I'm, you know, now I'm feeling like Woody Allen. I wish. Anyways, it was my good fortune to have that experience, and it was, and it brought, you know, I could better appreciate really what it took to facilitate the needs of these students, to put them into a position where they could discover things for themselves, say the right thing at the right time, see the light bulb goes on. I mean, that was reward itself enough. You didn't have to pay me to do that. That was a joy to be privileged enough to be in that position, and occasionally, you know, actually pull something off where, haha, you get it now, do you? All right. So, I think I've said just about everything I could possibly say about my memories of Sheridan and all points in between. Are there any other demons? Yes. I personally have one more demon. This demon is known as, well, geez, maybe I should have been a stand-up comic demon. Or maybe it should be called, could I be any more pretentious demon? Like, if you're thinking about leaving a note in below here on YouTube or wherever you're seeing this, and then you're going to write something like, hey Ed, I remember you. You were pretentious then and you're pretentious now. Well, tell me something I don't know. Really, that's part of the shtick, okay? If that makes any difference. Hello, click. Light bulbs? No, nothing? Nothing? Nothing?
I am done, as you can tell. I am totally spent. I have nothing left. So, I have nothing in here except for a little slurp of water, but this is, cheers to you all. I'm sorry that I cannot be there. Um, I remember you all well. And starting tomorrow, I will not remember you quite so well. But for this moment, in this point of time, God bless you all. Cheers.